Today's conversation starts with a claim that on the surface might sound harmless. Yolanda's aunt says that Stormi is more humble than Melody. She says Stormi believes in herself, does not take herself too seriously, and does not think she is above other people. She also suggests that Melody gave off the opposite impression, and right there is where the issue begins. Because this is not just about praising Stormi. This is about how once again, certain people feel the need to lift one woman up by tearing another woman down. And when you step back and really listen to what Yolanda's aunt is saying, it becomes clear that this is not admiration. This is comparison. And more specifically, it is a passive-aggressive comparison aimed squarely at Melody. Let's be very clear from the start. There is nothing wrong with liking Stormi. There is nothing wrong with thinking Stormi is positive, confident, or self-assured. People are allowed to have favorites. People are allowed to connect with certain personalities more than others. That is not the problem. The problem is the constant need to place Melody at the bottom of the pedestal while putting Stormi on top of it. Yolanda and her aunt have developed a pattern. Every time Stormi is discussed, Melody somehow gets dragged into the conversation. Melody's name may not always be said directly, but the references are obvious. The coded language is obvious. The nicknames are obvious. The tone is obvious. And that is why so many viewers are no longer buying the "we didn't say her name" excuse. When Yolanda's aunt says Stormi does not think she is above everyone, the implication is clear. The message being sent is that Melody did think she was above everyone. When she says Stormi is nicer, more genuine, more humble, and does not make speeches about the devil, she is intentionally drawing a contrast. That is not accidental. That is strategic. And what makes this even more frustrating is that Melody is not even on the show anymore. She has made it very clear that she is done. She has moved on. She does not want to return. She is not begging for her job back, no matter how badly certain narratives want that to be true. So the question becomes, why is Melody still being discussed? Why is she still being compared? Why is she still being criticized? And more importantly, why do some people seem unable to talk about Stormi without bringing Melody into it? This is where the conversation shifts from opinion to motive. Yolanda's aunt also claims that Stormi started out trying to protect Melody until she found out who she really was. That is an accusation wrapped in soft language. It suggests betrayal. It suggests disappointment. It suggests that Melody is not who people thought she was. But again, none of this is supported with facts. It is all perception. And perception does not equal truth. Melody has always been a strong personality. She has always been outspoken. She has always been direct. She has always been confident. And in spaces where women are expected to be quiet, agreeable, and accommodating, that confidence often gets misinterpreted as arrogance, especially when the woman is successful, especially when the woman is not apologetic, especially when the woman refuses to shrink herself to make other people comfortable. So when Yolanda's aunt says Stormi is humble and does not think she is above people, what she is really saying is that Stormi presents herself in a way that feels more comfortable to certain audiences. That does not mean Melody was wrong. It means Melody was different, and different has always been punished more harshly than wrong. Another point that needs to be addressed is this idea that Stormi didn't mess up her bag and knew how to treat Carlos King. That statement alone reveals a lot, because now we are not talking about personality anymore. We are talking about strategy. We are talking about compliance. We are talking about knowing how to play the game. And that opens up an entirely different discussion. Is humility really humility if it is tied to staying in good graces with producers? Is being nice really being nice, or is it being careful? Is being humble the same thing as being non-confrontational? These are questions that rarely get asked, but they matter. Because Melody did not play the game the way people wanted her to play it. She challenged narratives, she pushed back, and for that, she became a problem. Stormi, on the other hand, is being praised for being agreeable, positive, and easy to work with. That does not make her better. It makes her different. And difference does not need to be ranked. One of the most disrespectful parts of this entire conversation is the suggestion that Melody is begging to come back to Love and Marriage Huntsville. That narrative has been floating around for a while, and it has never been supported by any real evidence. Melody has built a brand outside of the show. She has businesses. She has speaking engagements. She has music. She has her own platform. The idea that she would be begging to return to a show she helped build, only to be disrespected on, does not add up. If anything, the show benefited more from Melody than Melody benefited from the show. And that brings us to the bigger issue that nobody wants to say out loud. Marriage Huntsville would not be what it is without Melody. Period. From day one, Melody was a central figure. Her marriage, her business, her conflicts, her growth, and her downfall were all major storylines. The show's most talked about seasons, particularly seasons 4, 5, and 6, were driven heavily by Melody's presence. The arguments, the music moments, the tension with Martell, the raw emotion, all of that is what made the show compelling television. And while the show has had memorable moments since then, including Kiki throwing that drink on Tisha, nothing has quite matched the intensity and authenticity of those earlier seasons. That drink throw was iconic. It was chaotic. It was messy. But even that moment existed within a larger framework that Melody helped create. So when people try to rewrite history and downplay Melody's impact, it feels disingenuous, it feels revisionist, and it feels personal. Another layer to this conversation is how women like Melody are often reframed after they leave a space. Once they are no longer there to defend themselves, narratives get rewritten. Suddenly they were difficult. Suddenly they were arrogant. Suddenly they were ungrateful. And the people who benefited from their presence start acting like they were the problem all along. This is not unique to Melody. We have seen this happen in other spaces, on other networks, with other women. Which brings us to Nene Leakes. The way people are reacting to Nene right now mirrors a lot of what Melody has experienced. The dragging, the mocking, the criticism of her appearance, the constant reminder that she should be grateful for whatever scraps are thrown her way. And yet when you look at the facts, Nene is one of the most influential figures in reality television history. There would be no Real Housewives of Atlanta as we know it without Nene. There would be no expansion of the franchise without the success of Atlanta. There would be no Watch What Happens Live in its current form without the audience that Atlanta helped build. And yet Nene was punished for knowing her worth. She was punished for speaking up. She was punished for refusing to be used quietly. And now that she is slowly making her way back into the Bravo ecosystem, people are suddenly changing their tune. They want her talent, they want her star power, they want her ratings, but they still want to control the narrative. This pattern is not accidental. It is systemic. When women, especially Black women, outgrow the boxes they are placed in, the personal story shared about customer service is a perfect example of this dynamic. Being praised behind the scenes while being treated poorly to your face. Being used as the standard while being punished for not conforming. Being valuable but not respected. That is exactly what happened to Nene. That is exactly what happened to Melody. And that is why these comparisons feel so uncomfortable. Because they are not really about Stormi. They are about control. They are about who is seen as acceptable. They are about who knows how to stay in line. Stormi is being praised for not making waves. Melody is being criticized for creating them, but waves are what move things forward. Stormi does not need Melody to look good. Stormi can stand on her own, and Melody does not need Stormi's approval to validate her legacy. Both things can be true. The problem arises when people refuse to let Melody exist outside of Stormi's shadow, even after she has left the show. At some point, the comparisons need to stop. At some point, the passive-aggressive comments need to end. At some point, people need to accept that Melody's chapter on the show is closed. She is not coming back. She does not want to come back. And continuing to drag her name through conversations about other cast members only highlights unresolved resentment. So the real question is not whether Stormi is more humble than Melody. The real question is why some people are still so bothered by Melody's presence, even in her absence. That is something only they can answer.